in recent years from a school that was once at the point of closure to becoming one of the most sought after in the capital. So Naomi will share how the school developed a shared framework for exceptional teaching and embedded instructional coaching to strengthen the classroom practice. And the session will also explore how a deliberate focus on pupil engagement and school culture is helping students thrive, engage more deeply in their learning, and develop a stronger sense of belonging within their community.
Thank you very much. It's a really big sort of opening as well. I apologise about my voice. I've been really sort of ill, and so obviously got a slight huskiness to that also. It says on there, our journey to exceptional teaching. I don't feel like we're there yet. One of my big things is always looking at reflection and refinement as well. So I don't believe that we are exceptional, but I do believe we've been on this really big journey of kind of turning our school around. So I'm the assistant head teacher for teaching and learning. When I joined All Saints, actually, my role was different. I was assistant head teacher for pupil engagement. And if you sort of look at your SLT, there's probably no one on that panel in terms of someone who specifically looks at how students can engage in school, whether that's in the classroom or actually coming into that as well. And the work which I've done, I've moved over to teaching and learning. Someone else is doing that role also. So just to give you an insight in terms of our school context, we're based in London, in Ladbroke Grove. I don't know if any of you have heard of Ladbroke Grove at all. We're right next to Notting Hill. Maybe that's a bit familiar as well from the movie. Now, Notting Hill, Holland Park, very rich, affluent areas. Our school, Ladbroke Grove, is not like that at all. Students are at high risk of gangs, there's high crime. Our students are living in really high-rise council estates as well. They're coming from, some of them from broken homes. A lot of our students are young carers as well also. A lot of our students come from single parent families, have parents who are in prison as well. So a whole plethora of obviously issues for that too. And the big thing is getting the students into school, you know, for that reason. We have a very high percentage of students. This is currently today, 40% of our students are pupil premium. Then to add to the mix of that as well, over 20% of our cohort is SEN, and our EHCP numbers are probably double of national too. And I think because speaking to parents, they sort of see us as a school which is very sort of inclusive and a big focus on SEN also. We are a mainstream school, but we do have a small specialist provision in our school for 8 students only who have an EHCP, a focus on autism and also speech and language also. And having that in our school actually has been absolutely phenomenal. Constantina, who runs that as well, is an expert in adaptive teaching. So we utilise her a lot. She runs a lot of our CPD sessions too also. But also we're trying to bring some of those students into the mainstream. So some of their English and maths lessons are done with our students also as well. And we've actually had students who started off in the specialist school and now in the mainstream provision too also as well. So there's been a lot of work with regards to that. So if you sort of looked in the media, Andrew O'Neill was brought in 2016, so before I was there as well, and the school was on the brink of closure. We didn't fill our numbers. The behaviour at the school was awful. Staff weren't happy, kind of, etc. And so he had this focus of, right, we need to have this sense of belonging and getting students in there. He changed the name. Before it was called Sion Manning, it was an all-girls school, and completely sort of transformed that. He actually, last year, he's on secondment with the DfE at the moment. He's a special advisor for education. And so Paul Walton at the moment is our acting head teacher. And the heart, in terms of Andrew as well, is about the students. Now, this is all in our brochures and things like that as well. We've got consent for these pictures. But in terms of everything we do, it's about these students. Their experiences outside of school is really sort of negative. We have to do the best that we can to give them that best sort of opportunity and get them those best outcomes also. So the first thing was bringing that sense of belonging, because there was nothing there at all whatsoever. Really driving strong relationships between staff and pupils. Students wanting to come into school because their home life isn't great as well. But really importantly, students feeling seen and valued. So one of the things that I've worked on for the last couple of years was about, we call them hidden students, those who kind of go under the radar. If I was to ask you, name a student who's always in trouble, like I could list this person here. Name a student, who's doing exceptionally well, you could name that. And then if I kind of said to you, oh, so-and-so, I can't quite picture them. Who are they? I know they're in my lesson, but I'm kind of not too sure. And actually, those are our really key students, the one who are very complicit, very quiet in lessons, to sort of sit there, get on. Are they learning? Probably not. And actually, there's probably sometimes a lot of underlying issues. So again, we had a big drive, a big initiative, and we're still continuing on with that as well, of really getting to know those students, targeting those students, student voice, speaking with parents as well. What do they like? What things do they like to do as well? And I'll talk you through some of the things as well, because the big sense of belonging for us is if they have that sense of belonging, that it's going to improve their behaviour and also then improve their learning as well. So these are a series of sort of different images. I don't have a lot of time to kind of go through everything, but one of the drives we sort of brought in was staff actually just engaging with students outside of lessons. Now, AJ, who's actually doing the basketball, he's part of the engagement team. It wasn't just for the team as well. Now, this isn't part of staff's directed time. We didn't force them. I did a lot of sort of, you could say, marketing sort of about this as well, in terms of the benefits of this, and we have a huge uptake. This isn't every day, this is not once a week. At certain points in the school year, having these things. So we had student versus staff basketball thing, and these actually students here, which are there, are some of our really quiet students in class. And actually just having that time doing basketball, because the parents said, oh, I love doing basketball. We're like, great. So actually getting these staff engaging with them as well, having those conversations. We have different departments running different things. This is our RE department, who are doing a student versus RE department volleyball as well. We had, again, some of our quieter teachers in there as well, taking part. And there was probably about 10 across the lunchtime. Some of the matches, they won. Some of them, they lost really, really badly. But it was that sense of enjoyment, so the students can see as well, it's just taking part. It's just fun also. Culture Day, we come from a really diverse area in terms of loads of different cultures, and on that day as well, students can come in culture dress and colours as well. Teaching is as normal, but we have an extended lunch, and part of that extended lunch is there's loads of activities. We are in a school and an area where we don't have huge amounts of money, as I'm sure a lot of you are struggling with as well. This doesn't cost us loads of things as well on top of that, where we had students and staff singing different activities, and our attendance really goes up through the roof when they know these things are coming in as well, and the lead up to that also. We are a Catholic school, and one of the things we have is All Saints Day. Now, I've taught in other Catholic schools, and when you tend to have some of these days, they can be a little bit dry, a little bit in terms of we're kind of going through this. And so we've sort of turned it on its head. So when students come in at the start of the day, all of our staff line up either side, and there's flags, and we have this whole staff body singing when the Saints go marching in with our steel pan. So our students who do steel pan are playing that, and it's this whole sense of community. And again, students, it's a day that they know, and especially the year 7s, we get them in last because they've never experienced this before. It's a phenomenal thing, and this image is when the students are basically coming into school. They come in really engaged, really excited too. We are really pushing in terms of our attendance. It's been a big issue, and we're still working on that to keep students in school, but also consistently as well. So we do use this as a little bit of a carrot in terms of your if you want to take part in some of these events as well, making sure that you're engaged and you're doing these things too also. Now, our other big event, and this is down to our phenomenal staff, is our staff panto, which happens at Christmas. This was Shrek, which was done basically this year. This is a really, really, really big thing where students want to take part, because part of it, they will take the mickey out, some members of SLT and things like that. The kids love it. And they know if they want to attend these things, we use X's and stars for our behaviour system. The percentage of those X's needs to be quite low. And obviously, if we have students who we know are quite vulnerable, who are getting a lot of trouble, we do sometimes a reset also for that too also as well. So there's sort of a lot of things which we're sort of doing. Last year, one of the things I was focused on was year 8. If you think about year 7, that's the transition year, excited to be there, year 9 for options, and obviously year 10, 11 for GCSE. But what's the purpose of year 8? If you ask a student, if you ask a parent, it's part of Key Stage 3. There's not really anything there about sort of year 8 in terms of makes that sort of special. So we've come up with Elevate. We've only started this September. I've had to hand it over, which was a bit upsetting, but it's going leaps and bounds. And so the big focus for us, and we say this to students, it's about you transforming into these young learners, into these sort of young adults as well, and bringing back that sense of enjoyment and engagement with school, because what we sort of notice is students are really happy and engaged in year 7, not all of them, but most of them kind of get to year 8 and there's that dip. We know that dip exists as well, starting to get into more trouble, becoming a bit more passive as well, because they don't have that sense of belonging. It's our big thing about belonging, but actually what are we doing for year 8? So there's a lot of things which we sort of do with that. So for half term 1 and for half term 2, we brought back PGL. In the 3rd week in September, we have our year 8 students going away for that also. And we kind of spoke to them about, is this the right, they've done it in primary school and it has been phenomenal. This student on the other side here, SEN, really struggled for school as well. And coming back from that too also has been fantastic and phenomenal. Part of that is they have specific enrichments as well after school. Now, it's not a case of sign up for football, sign up for this. It's something different. So like coding, some of our staff have done even like candle making, really bespoke things based upon that student voice, spending time getting to know what they then want to do as well. Last half term, the focus was inter-house competitions, but we've done a little bit of a spin. They're actually performing today Pitch Perfect. So part of the curriculum we brought in for half term 4 was in their music lessons. As their music classes, they've been practicing and rehearsing a song, very current songs, with regards to that, and they're performing at lunchtime today in terms of that and kind of bringing in that sense of competition. We do have sports competitions too also. And then this half term we've got enrichment back again, and then obviously half term 6 is for end of year exams, but also rewards with regards to that. With regards to everything which we're doing, staffing, our staff are our greatest resource, and it's a really big thing that we push in terms of making them feel really valued and seen in terms of all of this. And our mantra, which we kind of have, is we see staff as athletes. They are our greatest assets. Everything we're talking about today from CPD, they are the ones who are in the classroom every day. And so when we sort of talk about them in terms of being athletes, we do instructional coaching, but obviously we've just signed up for IRIS as well, which I'll talk about in a bit. But about what is it that we can do to make them the very best? What things do we kind of need to bring in? And part of that as well is also, as an athlete, you need to have that rest and recovery also. You can't be work all the time also. So these are some of the things which we've done with our staff body. So when I kind of run inset days, or if we've had drop-down afternoons or twilight, it's actually building in that time for staff coming together, not just to talk about the teaching and learning, but actually just having time just to do something completely different. And again, we have phenomenal staff who run this. So Kemi, our food teacher, they made lemon drizzle cakes, and those cakes we actually brought in the next day, and we gave those to the students as well, because again, these are students who are very high pupil premium, we're kind of giving them that too also. Candle making, there was I think badminton and other things staff can sign up to also. Now, with our value of staff, and one of the things in particular that Andrew's really sort of focused on is we know retention rates for staff isn't great. We know not a lot of people are signing up to be teachers as well, and we really want to keep the staff which we have, but also to attract other staff to come to our school. So we've been doing flexible working for a few years. That means staff have a PPA once a week, which is a morning or an afternoon. It sort of depends on timetables. We try to give staff their preference, but it's going to depend in terms of timetabling, and they can take that at home. They do not have to be at school to do that. You know, I'm also a parent as well, and so having the opportunity to, you know, as a teacher, it's very hard. You don't get to take your kids to school. You drop them off to the breakfast club or the after school club and things like that as well. Actually taking their children, picking them up from school or taking them also. For Key Stage 3, really push smaller class sizes. Approximately we have 24. Some of them are even smaller as well, especially if we have a high ratio of SEN with regards to that. GCSE is slightly different because it depends on options and things like that also as well. That means for staff, when it comes to the end of year exams, which come up very shortly, there's fewer papers for them to mark as well. When they're in a lesson as well, they have a higher turnover of actually working with students as well. We are also trying to keep mindful of reducing our teaching hours. Now, obviously, that has the biggest cost, because what it then means is that we are then trying to recruit more people within departments so we can do that. And that is something we are continually working on and we're really trying to do with regards to that. So an example would be our head of English. We have a six period day, 50-minute lessons, is currently teaching, in terms of her teaching hours, 18. So it has 18 lessons with regards to that. And actually next year we're able to reduce that to 16, especially for English and maths, trying to reduce those departments so they have more time for CPD and actually sort of improving that also. Then in terms of the teaching, now what we sort of say to staff is we're on that journey to exceptional teaching. We are not there yet at all, and we're looking at what we can do. And so there's sort of a number of things which we're sort of doing, and I'll sort of talk through also. I'm a science teacher by trade, and so active ingredients, if any of you sort of teach science, if you have any sort of medicine, so for example like ibuprofen, and you kind of look at it, there's a whole heap of stuff, and like, what is all of this stuff? There's one active ingredient. That ingredient is the thing that's going to reduce swelling, reduce temperature, and the other things is so it tastes nice, solubility, loads of bits and pieces for that as well. And so we've been looking at what are those really key active ingredients in teaching. And we've worked with staff, we've looked at research and how we can kind of put those together, and I'll show you that in a moment. We have a coaching program where we do instructional coaching. So we have cycles. So each cycle is approximately 2 weeks long, and the subject lead are our coaches, and they will then do a lesson drop-in. We don't do lesson observations at all whatsoever, and they're coming for around 15 minutes into a lesson as well, and then that will then form part of the coaching conversation, which will happen that same week or the following week also too. It's also one of the reasons why we've actually moved to IRS2 and incorporating that into our system. Another thing, I'm quite proud of 6-minute takeaways. We have briefing Monday, Wednesday, Friday for about 10 minutes each morning. We've moved away from just sitting having, you know, all staff sort of CPD, everyone getting that one size fits all. But also there are things which come up that we kind of need to sort of talk about. And so we're very time poor as teachers. We've got a lot of things which we kind of have to do. And so we've introduced 6-minute takeaways where whether it's myself or a staff member has 6 minutes to talk about what they've been doing, what's the impact, and then how can that be translated in other departments also as well. And then the last thing is sort of changing how we have department meetings. Traditionally, it's a case of the subject lead sort of standing there and talking about, okay, this is coming up, guys, make sure this is done, make sure you've got this marking done, make sure this kind of planning. And we've moved away to this, and we call this now CPR. The focus of those department meetings is about curriculum planning and review. As you know, with all of the changes coming in as well. But before all of that, in terms of looking what's working in the department, pick a topic. Right, we're teaching Macbeth in English. How was that? What do we need to do to change this? How can we change this for next year? Because our cohort, our current year 10s, they have very high Key Stage 2. Our current year 9s have low. So what we're going to do for them when they're year 10 can't be the same what we did this year also as well. Now, these are some of our active ingredients, and these things aren't set in stone, by the way, as well. You know, I said to staff, I want you to be thinking about what other things do we need to be sort of bringing in also. So when I do any sort of CPD training, or staff do 6-minute takeaways, there's always a focus in terms of which active ingredient or which active ingredients is that focus for. And obviously teaching pedagogy, I mean, we've heard about sort of the research there as well, but in terms of what are those key components in terms of making a really successful lesson in science or in English, etc. High quality instructional delivery, you know, in terms of I do, we do, you do, but what are those things in particular, especially for those who are SEN, for them breaking that down. Formative assessment and responsive teaching. This is a really big thing for us because we've moved on our journey in terms of the behaviour is in a really good place. We have our systems and routines. Actually, what we were finding was staff were following that sort of script. I'm going to do this, this, this and this. But then you have a student and it's like, what do I do in that moment? And part of what certain staff are looking at, we have a high percentage of staff really working about that responsiveness in terms of what to do in that moment, how to get them to think about in terms of what to do. Teens, and we have adaptive teaching into 2 areas, so for scaffolding but also for stretch in terms of that as well. And all of these things in terms of this also, it's not a case of this is a one-size-fits-all. We're constantly looking and refining for that too. And then dialogical teaching and high-quality questioning. You know, there's so much research coming out about oracy and the importance of very purposeful talk and things like that too. And then obviously we couldn't have anything about reading, literacy and vocabulary also. So this sort of forms, okay, so say the heart of in terms of what we kind of look at. Now, staff have an area of focus that they work on throughout the year. Now that area of focus isn't a case of me in particular. I would say my adaptive teaching in particular for stretch is very, very strong. You know, I tend to have a lot of the top sets and things like that. But I don't have as many sort of lower sets, so my scaffolding. And so before staff sort of knew, we got them to do quite an extensive, I love Microsoft Forms in terms of the data, reflective form across all these areas, not for the pedagogy, not for the reading, but across the other areas. And really specific reflective questions. And based upon that, those areas where those gaps were, that then became their area of focus. So we don't use the term target. What's your area of focus? What are those things actually, if I was thrown into that situation, I'm not as confident and as in as well to kind of build that. I'm going to show you in a moment a picture just in terms of how we're using the data. So anytime myself or SLT or subject lead goes into a lesson for a lesson drop-in, they fill in again a very short form. And the form's broken up into 3 areas. What's the teacher doing? What are pupils doing? And then what are in the books as well. And it's on a scale, so all they have to do is literally just click the number. 3 is obviously really high exceptional. 1 is an area of concern. 0 is just because you haven't seen it in that lesson, because in that small snapshot, you're not going to see everything also. This is what our data person has literally taken that. Now, I don't know how he's done this. I've made the form, but he's used Power BI, whatever that is, in terms of to create this. So this is a dashboard which I can see and SLT can see in terms of actually what's working well, what do we kind of need to work on. Now, this one is for an informal lesson drop-in. So just anyone sort of just coming in, just sort of looking for that also. We can see then across departments where those strengths are, where those areas of focus are. We can also see trends over time. I couldn't include it to April, it made everything just so small and tiny with regards to that. And we can see in terms of those percentages, and it's just giving you a bit of a snapshot of some of the statements, which subject leads and us, we kind of rate sort of in those lessons too also. Now, the big thing I say to staff, we are not coming in to check up on you. I'm really pushing and changing that culture, because when we started lesson drop-ins, it was that, why are you here? What have I done wrong? It's like, no, we want to see what you guys are doing. So actually it helps me to really inform the CPD. It helps me to inform what the needs are of our school and how we can move forward. Across all of them, you will then have a specific form. So when someone goes in, if this person is focusing on the style pedagogical teaching, when you click on that, it branches out to give you a different set of questions with regards to that. So you won't have this in every department, but I can see here the staff who are really working on this area compared to the informal. There's a really high percentage of greens. And what I've actually done with some of this staff is I've used them for 6-minute takeaways to talk about that journey, that reflection. How do they go from here to over there also as well? So the curriculum planning review, which is our sort of replacement for our sort of department meetings, I'm going to use an English example in terms of what they sort of done. Now, in terms of the agenda, we give autonomy to the subject leads to decide what that focus is going to be. There will be some times that we do sort of direct and when it comes up in terms of like mock analysis after certain things, but they have the autonomy to decide in terms of what the needs are of their department. So one of the things they were looking at was for middle prior attainers who were coming in, obviously pupil premium, who were below in English. So they, after we did, I think this was their Easter assessments, there was a high percentage of students in year 9 who were below track in English. And then it's a case of then what do we then do? So when they then started then to have a look, this is just a screenshot of this student here. Big thing, not writing enough. There wasn't enough writing in the books in terms of what they were doing for essay questions. Also, there's, you can see there's a little bit of red. Now, we don't get staff to mark retrospectively in their books. What we do is live feedback in lessons. So what that means is roughly every 3 to 4 students, when they're doing independent work or different tasks, the teacher's going around and doing live marking. And again, that's not a whole essay, it's small, sharp things which is going to help move that learning forward, and also having a conversation with the student there in a lesson. This is then the same student again, but the green pen, so after that conversation, there's not really a lot there as well. So that's where they started, that was the landscape. Then they then said, right, what is it that we then need to do to help move that learning forward? That focus was actually talking to the department. Not everyone was doing this consistently. There's not a big focus of live feedback. For these students in particular, before they started on a task, actually check in with them in terms of that as well. So bringing in more of that AFL for these students and cold calling and targeting questioning. So they then did that for a 6-week period. This is the same student as before. So you can see there's more red pen, but again, the teacher isn't writing the whole essay. It's really sharp focus. And look at the amount of green pen that students now done now, and also the amount of more writing which they're doing. They've even then taken down things from the teacher model that they've then put down to help them for that too also. And there's been a really big improvement. And changing this sort of traditional way of sort of department meetings, we're actually finding has really been really successful. This last area is academic support assistants. We call them ACEs. This is completely new. It's something actually Andrew brought in a few years ago. So obviously we have TAs, but they're not subject experts within that field. Obviously they're experts in that child of the children they're working with, but in terms of when you go to a science lesson, it's completely different to an English lesson, to a geography lesson in terms of the subject knowledge which is needed there as well. So we have at the moment 6 university graduates. We had them in English, Maths, Science, RE, MFL and Humanities. We are trying to get across the board, but it is hard to try to get graduates who kind of want to do this. And because they are subject experts, their role primarily is supporting with adaptive teaching, looking at the curriculum, working with the subject leads in terms of what are the barriers for learning, not just from an SEN point of view. So for example, if I was going to teach electrolysis, I know there's a huge amount of cognitive overload before I even begin, whether you're SEN or not sort of SEN as well. Working with the teachers to not only just build resources to help with that as well, but also in the lesson, what are they going to be doing to support those students too also? The other thing also is for some of those students having targeted intervention, either at break time, lunchtime, some of them after school. We're trying not to take these kids out of lessons and doing those things also. And also we've just started this year to bring in more and more things on pre-teaching. Now of the 6 ACEs we have, 2 are leaving. The two who are leaving are actually quite happy for the reason why. They've gone on to teach first, and they're going to train to become teachers. And actually, we kind of see this as, not for all of them, but for some of them, that next step of graduation. It'd be really interesting to see how actually doing this for a year is going to help them to become teachers. Because, you know, when you have ECTs, inexperienced teachers, that whole adaptive teaching, even for experienced teachers, is really quite challenging and difficult. How can I adapt my lesson when I have completely sort of different needs across in the room as well? So we're going to keep in touch with them to kind of just, you know, track their journey, see how it's been. On the 6-minute takeaway, one of the ASAs, the science ASA, Macy, I got her to actually present on this to staff. She had year 10 students. They were all pupil premium. Some of them were SEN. There was 8 students. Once a week at lunchtime, she would pre-teach Tier 3 vocabulary. Now, science is a whole language in itself, but in terms of the high percentage of Tier 3 words, if I was to say to you, you know, electrolysis, mitochondria, organelle, I mean, there's so many things. It's, what am I saying? It doesn't make sense at all. So obviously for these students as well. And what she was doing was explicitly teaching the vocabulary, a bit of pre-learning as well, for roughly about half an hour. Once a week. And then when these students then came into the lesson, they were not only more engaged, they were the ones who were more inclined to put their hands up, but their understanding of the concept literally went through the roof also. And also we then spoke with parents, and they've also seen a confidence shift in terms of science in particular. Oh, I hate science, I don't like this. Actually, no, because I understand it too also. So we're now working with other ASAs to do that more also. And obviously we can't do it with every single child, but we're focusing on our really sort of key vulnerable students also in relation to that. So this is sort of the last sort of thing in terms of why Iris. We have our coaching model, but if I'm honest, we've been in sort of a landscape where sometimes the perception and the reality for some staff is very different and things like that as well. When you're having those coaching conversations, you're having to use your memory in terms of just like, okay, right, that was last week, let me get my notes out. There's going to be things which are going to be forgotten, but really in particular for us is, and this isn't a slur on our staff, I wouldn't say they're very reflective in terms of that self-reflection, because it's a personal thing, it's a difficult thing as well in terms of actually what's working, what do I need to refine, this, I've tried this, actually I'm going to try this again. And we're creating this culture of innovation. We want you to try these things and see how that goes also. And so this is why we sort of moved over here as well. We literally have only signed up. So we aren't at the stage where I can talk about what's worked and what hasn't worked. We are sort of in the infancy, and we're working a bit of a pilot with some staff at the moment, with then the plan to then go whole school in September also as well. So that's just a little bit of insight into our journey, and thank you guys very much. Thank you.